are learning a very, very holy book, such a holy book that it's having encounters with me, as I'll explain to you soon. It's definitely one of the books that's really changing my life. Hopefully it's changing your life. It's the book called Chayvas Halvavas, Duties of the Heart, written over 1,000 years ago by a great mystic called Rabbi Achai. And we're learning specifically a chapter called The Gate of Trust, the Shar B'Tofen. B'Tofen, my friends, I haven't yet found a word which is a good English word for B'Tofen, because it's not faith, it's not trust, it's giving yourself over entirely to Hashem. What's a good word for that? What's a nice English word for giving oneself entirely? Just surrendering to Hashem. Whoa, where's that Audible? Where is that, James? Send me the link of the Audible version. That's pretty cool. Put it on Facebook too. Okay, everybody, so let's learn. I want to start off with, we're now right in the middle of the beginning of the introduction to Shar B'Tofen. I want to just give you a bit of an intro from the great Brisker Rov, and he says the following. There's a verse in Tehillim. Okay, let's learn, everybody. You ready? Let's go. Here we go. Time is short. Let's get stuck in to B'Tofen, to surrendering to God, surrendering to Hashem in a good way, like ego surrender. So there's the Brisker Rov, whose name is Rabbi Zev Soloveitchik, says that he would juxtapose Chovos Halvavos to a specific verse in Tehillim that I want you to look up. It's Tehillim chapter 27, verse 14. One of the most famous lines in Psalms, where it says the following in Hebrew: Kaveh el Hashem, give hope to Hashem. Chazek v'yamitz libecha, strengthen yourself. V'kaveh el Hashem, and hope to Hashem. So again, in English, King David writes, hope to Hashem, Kaveh el Hashem. Then strengthen yourself and he will give you courage. And then once again, hope to Hashem. So says the Brisker Rov, one might think that if a person hopes to Hashem and has faith, Hashem will provide him with suitable source of income, all his needs. So then why do you need another hope for Hashem? It should just say, if you give your hope to Hashem, then you get strengthened, you get everything you need. It doesn't say that. It says, hope to Hashem. Hashem will strengthen you. And then once again, hope to Hashem. What's King David saying? And therefore, he's saying the following. This is the idea. Says the Brisker Rov, the more a person places and surrenders and gives over his reliance to Hashem, the more Hashem will address his needs. Theoretically, therefore, if a person reaches a high level of B'Tofen, Hashem could in turn arrange for him the most secure source of income. But Hashem doesn't want you to do that because Hashem loves you. Hashem doesn't want you to stop having to go back and talk to him. Therefore, the very best guarantee of a steady income is faith in Hashem. That is the gift that Hashem gives you. So rather, Hashem rewards the person with strengthening his heart and filling him with courage that he attains a greater level of B'Tofen, which causes him to be even more worthy of Hashem's providence and makes him even more fortunate. The cycle continues. So that the person's attachment to Hashem grows ever deeper. And then Hashem's care over you goes deeper too and stronger. And that's the message of the verse, meaning the greatest gift Hashem can give you is not money, is not, ironically, not to rely on him, but to rely on him. Because, my friends, that we are here in this world to gain the most beautiful relationship to Hashem. So if Hashem would, for example, I don't know if you know, in Europe, we had something called Euro Millions last week, where 190 million pounds, not dollars, not shekels, pounds, even after Brexit, it's still worth 4.13 in the shekel. So therefore, it's a lot of money. Someone who wins 190 million pounds, it could be the worst thing for him spiritually or her, because then he may feel, or she may think, there's no need to go and pray to Hashem anymore. You've got everything you need. So what Hashem does is, for all of you dear holy souls that are listening, if you're asking for a connection to Hashem, Hashem is going to show you that connection. but he's going to give you a little bit, feed you what you need today. Well, for what you have today, you're going to have, and maybe even for tomorrow. But if he gives you for what you need in 6 months' time, and you're going to stop going back to Hashem. So for your sake, you'll be lacking. So the greatest gift Hashem can give you is faith in Hashem and the courage to withstand the test and the courage to withstand the seeming loneliness and the seeming independence that one potentially might crave. And thus Hashem gives you that courage to keep on relying on Hashem, to keep on praying, to keep on not seeking independent help and only seeking almost the codependence of Hashem. Nice to see you, Dina, on Instagram, WhatsApp. So that's the idea. Let's go straight in now. So if you look into Shar B'Tochen, we're going from Umitay Alas HaB'Tochen, the fourth spiritual benefit B'Tochen. That's where we're up to. We've said 3 already. Tonight, we're going to do the 4th and hopefully the 5th. Here we go. One of the benefits that trusting in Hashem provides is Kiboteach B'Hashem, one who has B'Tochen in Hashem. Im hu ba momon, if he is wealthy, then whenever an expense is called for, he's going to promptly spend the money to meet the obligations towards Hashem and obligations towards other people, eagerly and generously. Meaning, one of the benefits of B'Tochen is it's blatantly obvious if Hashem gives you money, it's to use to be of service. Because you see, my friends, Julia, James, we're here to be of service. That's why we're here. We're not here to be masters. We're not here for ourselves. We're here for others. We're here to be of service. Therefore, if Hashem rewards you, it's not so you use all the finance to go on a crazy holiday, and then after that, you're no use to anyone. You know, there's an idea that you're meant to give 10% charity. I said last week, my wife's uncle passed away last week. His name was Bernard Felt. He had the 10% rule, but in the inverse. He would keep 10% and give away 90% to charity. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a relationship with him, and the Rebbe would say to him, here you go, here's $30 from me, $30 from my wife. All the rest, you go and build a mikveh. You're not allowed to ask anyone else. Hashem's going to give you the money, but you need to use all of it for the mikveh. And he had that relationship, and he gave millions and millions. So we see that the person with B'Tochen knows what to do with his money, because we have our money to use for others. And when someone doesn't have B'Tochen, it's very easy to forget that. It's very easy to forget. There's a lot of people in this world that are big philanthropists, and sorry, that they should be philanthropists, they're multimillionaires, but they struggle to give. They really struggle to give. B'Tochen helps you give, and it helps you give correctly. And that's the point, my friends. Even for us mere mortals, James, Julia, Hashem gives you a steady income. It's not just there to pay your bills. It's there to give at the very least 10% to charities. The very least that you'll be able to perform the mitzvahs of Hashem that Hashem wants you. You'll be able to afford to, whatever that may be, you know, buy the tefillin, buy the Jewish books, pay for the kosher food, which is more expensive. That's why Hashem will give you the money, not so that you can just go and spend it all on a holiday. That will be, Hashem will be like, nah, don't come back to me then. You're just going to use it away. You know, it's like going to a bank manager and saying, I need a loan for a very important hospital I'm going to build, and then you blow the whole loan on going out to the casino to Vegas. Hashem will not be impressed if, God forbid, we did that. And actually won't even give it to you, to be honest, because he can read your mind. He knows where you're going with it. You can't blag Hashem. You can't spin to Hashem. You can't pretend and say, oh, Hashem, I'm going to give all the money to charity, when he knows blatantly you're not going to. So that's the benefit of B'Tochen. And if you're not wealthy, then another benefit of B'Tochen, and this fourth benefit of B'Tochen will be you'll see that actually the lacking excessive money is actually a blessing. Let me ask you a question. Are we of the level? Let's say you bought 10 tickets for the Euro Millions, and then you didn't win it, would you be able, genuinely, hand on heart, to say it's a blessing? Let's say you lost out in making a lot of money. You had an opportunity to make a lot of money and you lost it out. Could you hand on heart say, oh, what a blessing? The person with bitachon absolutely can. Just like for those who are single, the person with bitachon, if you want to date someone and you're starting to date and you think maybe this is going to be the one you're going to marry, and then it doesn't work out, the person with bitachon will say, Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. You've saved me from having heartache later on. The person with bitachon has foresight to know that Hashem knows best. If you look at Hashem, my friends, is the person who loves you more than anyone in the world, who's watching your back, who's only going to give you what's good for you. And therefore, if something doesn't work out, you can say straight away, of course, it's for Hashem's benefit. One of my favorite stories about this is, sorry for those who have told this story before, I just came into my head, so Hashem wants me to say it to at least one of you who haven't heard it before. To happen about 100 years ago, a bit more. So the person who owns Macy's, a guy called Nathan Strauss. Nathan Strauss had an argument with his brother Isidore about should they go and open up soup kitchens in Israel. To cut a long story short, Nathan went and he traveled to Jerusalem, started opening up a soup kitchen in Mea Shearim. And on the opening of the soup kitchen, he has an accident, falls over, breaks his leg, which in those days was a very big deal. And he was disconsolate. He was upset because at that time he thought it was a terrible thing because they had the most amazing voyage planned for ages. It was going to be on the biggest boat ever, sailing from Southampton. The Titanic. Nathan Strauss, my friends, was meant to be on Titanic. And he broke his leg and it saved his life. He happened now to be in Israel. And after the Titanic went down and he realized his life was saved, he decided to dedicate his life to giving, to charity. They named a street after him in Jerusalem called Rehov Strauss, which I've walked on thousands of times. They named a city after him called Netanya, which I've been at many times. And at the time when he broke his leg and he's lying in hospital, he might have said, oh, the person with bitachon can see. You go to a hospital with something, you say, Baruch Hashem, this is what Hashem wants. I trust Hashem. We have to learn to do that, my friends. That's one of the biggest tests, that when something seemingly doesn't go right, to be able to say, Hashem, I know you love me and I know this is the best thing for me somehow, some way. So therefore, says the Chovos HaLevavos, if you're blessed with money, you use it right. And if you're not, you say, thank you, Hashem, because that's obviously not what my mission is. My mission is to do something else, because my friends, you're not here for you. You're here to do a mission in this world. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. And therefore, when something seemingly doesn't go right, we say, oh, Gam Ze L'Tova. It's even better. This is for the best. Gam Ze Tov. This is good. And therefore, because he's been free, there's a huge benefit. What's the benefit, everybody, from actually not receiving huge financial blessing? What's the benefit of that? Anyone want to message him? What's the benefit of not being a multimillionaire tonight? What else? Yeah, good. Nefeim, what else? Mility, what else? You're missing out. That's why, because you're not multimillionaires, you don't realize what the biggest stress is. What's it? Oh, now we're getting there, Roberto. Concerns. What are the concerns? What are the issues? Target, what else? What else? What else? What else? Imagine, just put yourselves, my friends, I can see. You're not yet succeeding at putting yourselves into other people's shoes, which is a big part of spirituality. Just for a moment, put yourself in the shoes of the multimillionaire. What happens? They have so many obligations, so many distractions, so many responsibilities, so much on their shoulders. I spoke to somebody last week, and he was saying that he's just up to his neck in helping so many people. He hasn't got time for anything, because and then how do you know to say no to someone? Because you're supporting financially so many, it becomes huge. And there's a very famous phrase in Pirkei Avos, Mar ben achosim, mar bedaigus. The more money you have, the more worries you have. But it's not just worries about your own house. One way of looking at it is the bigger the house, the more things can go wrong. The more beautiful your home is, the more it's going to cost. The more when things go wrong, the more it costs, the more issues there are. Before you know it, you're spending your whole time not enjoying your beautiful home, but actually worrying and stressing and waiting in for that builder and waiting in for that electrician and that plumber and that issue and the other issue and the other issue. And actually you prefer to be back in a very simple home where at least you've got your peace of mind. That's one benefit, but it's saying actually more than that. It's saying actually when you have wealth, it's a huge burden. And I'll give you the story. Matisyahu Solomon says, he says that he once brought a very big philanthropist to the great tzaddik, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, called the Steipler Gaon, Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, and the Steipler turned to Reb Matisyahu and said, Baruch Hashem, I don't have his mission. Baruch Hashem, I don't have his mission. Because if I had his mission, I couldn't sleep. Because I wouldn't know who do I have to give my charity funds to. And then even after I've given, I would worry whether the amount was sufficient to discharge my obligation. It's a huge responsibility. If you really want to become that multimillionaire and you want to do it right and you want to be able to perform your spiritual mission in this world, be careful what you ask for. Because are you sure you can do it? Are you sure you're really going to be able to give the amount that you're meant to give to all the people that are knocking on their doors? Because maybe Hashem's only giving it to you to help someone else. And therefore, if you haven't helped someone else, now you're liable for not helping. Like when I'm in shul, maybe, I think I'm right to feel this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's my Yitzhahara. But when I'm in shul and I see a lot of people go around asking for financial help. So I give what I can, but I feel because my job is to be a rabbi, my job is teaching, kind of, they're not my biggest responsibility. Whereas if I was a philanthropist, that everyone who would walk in, I would feel, okay, Hashem wants me to help him. Just like as a rabbi, any of you would message me and say, can you help me, Rabbi? Can you help me understand an idea? It is my responsibility, because as a rabbi, that's my responsibility. As a philanthropist, it's one's responsibility. Anytime someone says, can you help me financially? That's a huge burden, huge burden. I wouldn't want that burden. If you think about it, if I really thought about it, that you need to be able to handle that burden. And that's what the Chovos HaLevavos is saying. There was a true story, says listen to this, in the Gemara in Gittin, page 57. His name was Nakdimon Ben Gurion. He was very wealthy. He lived before the destruction of the Second Temple. His charity was legendary. The Gemara relates to when he went out in the streets, the servants would lay out silk rugs for him to walk upon. And then afterwards, the poor would be able to take them and sell them for profit. In addition, Nakdimon was one of the three wealthy people who agreed to sustain the whole city of Jerusalem when the Romans laid siege to it. Nevertheless, at the time of the destruction of the temple, his whole fortune was lost, and his daughter suffered terribly from the poverty. So the Gemara says, why wasn't Nakdimon's wealth preserved? And it says, because he didn't do as much as he could have done, even though he gave impressive generosity. The Gemara says it was still not what Hashem wanted. It was still insufficient. That's scary. That means maybe some philanthropists are listening right now, and you might be giving your 10%. You might think it's amazing. You've got to speak to your rabbi and find out, are you really giving your mission? Are there people that you could be helping that you're not? It's a huge responsibility. And the Chovos HaLevavos is saying, if you have bitachon, you have everything. Because if you have bitachon, if you have money, you know what to do with it. And if you don't have money, you also know what to do with your life. You know what to do with your mission. You know what to do with what Hashem gives you if you have a baal bitachon. Because you're with Hashem and you trust Hashem that whatever situation you're in, you're exactly where you need to be. Full stop. You're single, Hashem wants you to be single. You're married, Hashem wants you to be married. You're in work, Hashem wants you to be there. You're out of work, Hashem wants you to be there. Once you learn that Hashem's the puppeteer and we're the puppet on the string, we can chill the heck out. Do you know who sleeps very well at night? Puppets. Puppets are really not like worried, just like, oh, how am I going to get some new clothes for myself? Puppets are very cool. They're chill. They're just like on the string and they're all good. My dear friends, we're puppets. We're pawns on the chessboard with a bit of spiritual free will. That's it. But we haven't got free will how much money we earn. We don't have free will about how healthy we are. We don't have free will if we're going to get married. We don't have free will about how we can have kids. So let's chill the heck out. This is not your responsibility anyway. Just worry about what it is you should be worrying about, which is your spiritual moves, which is, are you learning Torah tonight? Yes, you are. Don't go anywhere then, because that is your spiritual responsibility. Have you given charity tonight? If you haven't, make sure you do, because that is your spiritual responsibility. Have you honored your parents tonight? If you haven't, make sure you do it, because that is your spiritual responsibility. Have you lost your temper? If you have, say teshuvah, because that was your spiritual responsibility. Not how much money have you brought in today? You don't bring in money. Hashem brings in that. Just like you don't bring in the rain, well, Hashem makes it rain. You don't bring in the rain of money. Hashem brings in that too. Chill out, everybody. Sleep like a puppet in those areas. Oh, and then it says, Kamoi Shenema, as it says, the following. He brings a story. You might say, may Hashem save me from the scattering of the soul. Those ones who heard this prayer said, what does it mean, the scattering of the soul? So this Tzaddik would say, Hashem save me from scattering of the soul. So he said, scattering of the soul means if I would have money invested in merchandise located in the major ports of every river and the major neighborhood of every city. So I'd always be occupied and preoccupied with strategies to protect my investments. So this is what the sages have said, as we said, one, Mar ben Nechosim, Mar b'daigus, the one who has increased possessions increases his worry. But the sages further said, Ezu Osher, who is truly a rich man. Anyone know how it finishes? Come on, Judy, do you know this one? It's a classic. Who is a rich man? Pirkei Avot, chapter 4, Mishnah 1. Hasomeach b'chalka, Roberta, on fire, right? Someone who's happy with his lot. That's the answer, Julia. If you're happy with your lot, that's a rich man. That's what it means to be rich. You want to be wealthy, to be happy with your lot. You want to be happy, to be happy with your lot. And therefore, you can have limited means, but if you're content with whatever Hashem has given you, then in a sense, you're wealthier than a person with vast assets who's consumed with concern about how to preserve and expand them. Are you with me? So it's almost like they're polar opposites. On one hand, Mar ben Nechosim, Mar b'daigus, the more property, the more worries. On the other hand, who is a happy person? The one who is a wealthy person, the one who is happy with his lot. They're two opposite extremes. Which, by the way, you could also be a multimillionaire, and if you're happy with your lot, then you're win-win. That's a win-win. Alavai, that's a win-win. The problem is, the Talmud says, if you have 100, you want 200. If you have 1 million, you want 2 million. You have 2 million, you want 4 million. You have 1 billion, you want 2 billion. And look outside in the world, that's what happens. That person, unfortunately, without bitachon. You can have ambition, but your real ambition should be spiritual ambition. And if your spiritual ambition is, I want to make a big difference to more charities, then Hashem will give you more wealth. If you're really on track. You understand? You can still be financially ambitious, but it's only if you're financially ambitious for spiritual motives. If you're financially ambitious for financial motives, that's not bitachon. That's not what we're into. But if you're really, I had a friend, they called him God's postman. He used to give about £2 million a year to charity. And sometimes on a Purim night, he'd give £1 million on that night, because on Purim, you're not allowed to say no to anyone. Someone puts out there. And he would often be telling people, I'm doing this deal. If I get it done, I'll give it all to you. And he really was motivated to do deals, not that he can buy himself a new house, not buy himself a new car, literally, because he cared so much about the spiritual work, and he understood he was God's messenger. Amazing. And that's the way to be. In the end, he fulfilled his mission. Hashem took him young. Sometimes it's the good people that actually leave this world young. Because my wife always says to me, keep sinning, darling. She says, keep sinning. And I say, whatever you say, darling, I have to do what you say. To fulfill what my wife says. So I always, no, I'm joking. Chas v'shalom. I can't blame my wife as much as Azam did. I really can't. This time I'm not gonna say it's my wife's fault. It's down to me. Then says someone who has faith in Hashem, the one who places trust in Hashem will thus gain the benefit of having money. meaning that he will have enough income to sustain himself, yet he will be spared the wealthy person's preoccupation with thoughts and constant worry. So that's the goal. The goal is, let's say, if you want to succeed on the money train, then you having the money only for spiritual motivations. And then that's why you're not bothered about all the goal. I said to Hashem, obviously Hashem told me get lost. But I said to Hashem, if you give me the 190 million, then what I'll do is I'll use at least 50% of it for Jewish outreach around the world, and I'll employ someone, and those people will deal with all the, I'll just get stuck in with doing more work. Hashem said no, basically. He said no, and he gave it to probably some Irish farmer who's now having lots of beer. So then he goes like this. Then he says the following. Let's go next. And therefore, here we go. Fifth benefit. Are we ready? Fifth benefit. In fact, another story. Should I give you a story? No, I want to get stuck in. I want to get stuck into the main course tonight. That was like the hors d'oeuvre. Now, ready for the main course? Here we go. This is complicated, everybody. This is complicated. This is a brain teaser a little bit. I want to see your answers to this question. And I even got an injury, a physical injury as a result of this piece of Chovos HaLevavos, which I'll explain to you soon. It was a very freaky moment, a bit like a Stranger Things moment happened in my life. I'll explain to you in a minute what happened. I'll read you what it says first. Here we go. But mayhem, one of the benefits of B'tochen is the one who truly places trust in Hashem will mean he doesn't have to rely on excess money for his insurance for the future. Rather, he views it as a deposit from Hashem that he's commanded to use in specific ways, that's what we said, for an allotted time period. And even if the money remains in his custody on a lasting basis, he will not become arrogant and rebel as a result of his fortune. Okay. So here we go. Let's get stuck into this. Here's the problem. Says the Chovos HaLevavos, someone who has B'tochen will have a peace of mind from the various worldly worries that weighs on someone who believes in their own efforts. So someone who doesn't have B'tochen is stressed. How many people don't sleep well at night? They're stressed about paying the bills. Where's the money going to come from? Where's the wife going to come from? Where's the help going to come from? Halavai, we slept. Can you imagine, James? Any of you, I'll give you a blessing. Some of you should lose sleep because you're thinking, where's Mashiach going to come from? When are we going to have Mashiach? That's how we should lose sleep. Only the tzaddikim are losing sleep for that. And they are literally sitting there at the Western Wall, crying to Hashem, Tikkun Chatzot, especially during these holy 3 weeks, saying, Hashem, Ad Mosai, when's Mashiach going to come? We've been here for nearly 2,000 years in exile. That's what we should be being awake for. Not, where's my next iPhone coming? When spouts are coming in Europe. These aren't the things to be losing sleep over. So he says, if you have B'tochen, you have peace of mind, and you have serenity from the emotional unrest and distress, normally the people have. Okay, and then he says, you have income that you won't have to travel. Here we go. Here's the complicated part. Are you ready? This is I'll give you a bit of a drum roll. This is the big moment. My question to you is, if you have B'tochen, are you allowed to travel for work? Very simple. Says the Chovos HaLevavos, if someone has faith in Hashem, you won't have to travel for work. Why would you have to travel? But she says, wears down the body, can hasten the end of one's lifetime. As it says in Tehillim, he's affected my strength through journey. He shortened my days. And he brings a story. Says the Chovos HaLevavos story, the following. There was a man, and in the early stage of his development, he traveled to a distant land to find a source of income because he wasn't making money in his town, so he traveled to a distant land. And in the city to which he traveled, he met a certain idolater. And And the man said to him, you idolaters, you're doing such nonsense, worshipping idols, like get over it. What are you doing? Whereas the idolater said, and who do you worship? So the man said, I worship Hashem. I worship Hashem. I worship God. The one God, I'm a monotheist. Says the idolater, ha, you hypocrite. Your behavior is contradicting your words. If you really, really trusted God and worshipped Hashem, why are you coming to my city for money? Why have you traveled all the way here? You don't really worship Hashem. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. You're not reliant on Hashem. If you really believed in Hashem, Hashem would have given you, provided for you in your own city. You wouldn't have had to come here. And at that moment, the man said, oh, you're right. Thank you so much for giving me this rebuke. We call it Musa. Thank you for giving me this Musa. Thank you for teaching me this lesson. And he returned to his land. And from that point forward, accepted upon himself never to leave his city again. Says the Chovos HaLevavos that it's wrong to travel for work. It's wrong to go, let's say you're struggling with work in your city. Says the B'tochen, says Chovos HaLevavos, have faith in Hashem and it will come to you. If you don't have faith in Hashem, then you might travel somewhere else, but you're not necessarily going to succeed there either. So here's the question. The question is, Chovos HaLevavos, that's harsh, man. Are you sure you can't travel for work? People the whole time travel. In fact, there's a Gemara. It's a Gemara in Baba Metzia, page 75b, that says if things go badly for a person in this town, he should move to a different place. And if he doesn't, he's got himself to blame. And he uses the phrase, Meshanem Mokum, Meshanem Mazel. If you change your location, you change your muzzle. I myself was told by a rabbi, go to Tel Aviv. That'll be a good place of livelihood for you. And I went to Tel Aviv, traveled from London. The person I just spoke about at the beginning tonight, Uncle Bernard, went to the Rebbe when he was struggling financially. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said to him, travel to Scotland. How the Rebbe knew about Scotland, only the Rebbe knows. And he traveled, which in those days, in the 1950s, was a big deal to travel from Manchester to Scotland. He traveled from Manchester to Scotland and made a lot of money in Scotland, which he wasn't making in Manchester. So number one, I've seen it work. Number two, the Gemara says to do it. Rabbis say to do it. What is the Chovos HaLevavos saying? What is he saying? The Rambam even says that you're even allowed to leave Israel. It's one of the excuses to leave Israel for livelihood. So why is the Chovos HaLevavos saying that one shouldn't travel for work? That is my big, what we call a bomba kasha, a serious question for you, everybody. That's a bomba kasha. That is like a brain teaser. This holy, holy book. Mwah. It's all holy. It's not a metaphor. It's truth. It's truth. And it's beautiful. And he's saying that you shouldn't be traveling for Parnasa. On the other hand, surely, it's something that the Talmud and the sages have not just permitted, but suggested and advised and are still advising even today. So how do we reconcile this seeming contradiction? That's my question. The question is, on one hand, the duties of the heart say do not travel for work. It will be a lack of b'tochen. With b'tochen, you won't need to travel. On the other hand, many Jewish sources say you should travel. Answers, please. Anyone like to give me an answer either on Zoom, on Facebook? Is there any answers coming in on Facebook? Exactly, Sherry, beautiful work. God, even Hashem told Abraham to leave to go to Egypt when there was a famine in the land. Jacob and the brothers left when there was a famine in the land. Exactly. So what is he saying? What is the Chovos HaLevavos saying? Anyone? Such a beautiful question. I love this question. No, I'm waiting for some answers. Come on, Julia, James. Any answers? So Julia's saying you should be traveling for Hashem. So maybe you're right. Maybe what the duties of the heart is saying, if it's for money per se, if it's for financial for the sake of finances, then there's nothing to talk about. The example I gave for Uncle Bernard was that Lubavitcher Rebbe said, you're going to give me 90% for charity. So then you could say that was for spiritual motives. So maybe the Chovah, some of us would agree that if you're going to continue your spiritual mission, that will be okay. Then it will be okay. And they're saying it depends on your spiritual level. I mean, I would say I don't know what that means there, because I said Bernard was giving 90%. He must be in a very, so what you're saying, if you're on a high spiritual level, then you should or shouldn't travel, because Bernard was on a very high spiritual level, and that's why Dafki he was told to travel. You know, Rabbi Hillel said to me to travel. I'm a rabbi. He told me to travel. So I've seen people who are on good spiritual levels be told to travel. So I think it's like this. Here we go. I'm going to tell you a funny story soon as well, which made me question. Let's start off with the Rashba. So a very holy sage who was just after the Chovah Savovos, about 150 years later. He says the following. So again, the question is, should you travel for work or not? Is it a lack of bitachon or not? Says the Rashba the following. Sometimes person lacks money because, it's harsh, we've done spiritual mistakes. We've made some spiritual mistakes. We've got some sins on our account, and that's blocking the vessel. You see, my friends, often the financial, Hashem wants to send you the financial blessing, but the vessel isn't ready to receive it. Sometimes the vessel is damaged. So we need to fix the vessel. Says the Rashba, sometimes traveling, that fixes the vessel. It says when you travel, it's a kind of city of refuge. You're leaving your comforts. You're leaving your home. You're leaving what comes easy, and it's cleansing you, and thus it fixes up your vessel. And since it fixes up your vessel, now you can receive that which without it you couldn't receive. So maybe the Chovah Savovos would say, maybe, but maybe with real faith, that could also fix up the sins, maybe. But the Rashba seems to be saying that often there's a certain category of individual that they're not blessed financially because the vessel's damaged, and we need to fix the vessel. And one of the ways to fix the vessel is to go through the trauma of travel, which if some of those people who are traveling to France right now from London, it's uber traumatic because they're 4-hour queues. So that is definitely one answer. Second answer, he says, is sometimes your finances are specifically changed through muzzle. Has any of you ever felt that the different months of the year create different energy flows, and some months money flows easier than others? No doubt about it. Muzzle plays a big part. And that's why, even with trust, often we could do with a change of muzzle. Sometimes it's muzzle which needs changing. And one of the ways to change the muzzle could be to change your house. But a better way is to actually change where you're living. By the way, you should even know something. When you daven, James is davening in Austria, Roberta is in Brazil. Then if you know, in every country, they have their own spiritual angels. And those angels are carrying your prayers. The only country where there's no angels is Israel, where Hashem just doesn't want anything to be delegated. Hashem is all coming to him. Through the Western Wall, everything comes to him. And therefore, and I really feel it, the difference of energy where we are in Israel, I feel a very different energy when I'm davening than in England. It's like in England, I've got like a certain angel that I'm like knowing well, that's I'm hi. And when I went to Uman, it was a different angel. And people who are spiritually in tune know the different countries. So therefore, it's a no-brainer that when you're going to a different country, you're going through different spiritual ramifications. One of them is the different angels. Another one is the muzzle. The muzzle changes. Meir Chaim's asking a very good question. He's saying, "Ein muzzle Yisrael." There's a famous phrase in the Gemara in Shabbat, which says the Jewish people are above the zodiac. So it doesn't mean that. It means, as the Ramchal in Derech Hashem, that we're not constrained by the zodiac. It means we're not subjugated by the zodiac. We can rise above the zodiac through our mitzvahs. But even when we rise above it, still through mazolos. For example, the Gemara in Shabbos says that when Abraham couldn't have children, Hashem says, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rejig Jupiter. You can't have children because of what the planets were doing. I'm going to like move around the planets. And therefore, we're going to change your name to Abraham with the hey, Avraham. And now the muzzle's going to change. And thus, I do have to still change the planets. Meaning, even when we get changed, the muzzle is changed. That's why, at the end of the day, when your son, Mechaim, had his birthday, I wished you mazel tov. We still go through muzzle. You know, when we have a congratulations, it's still mazel tov. Even the Jewish people are renowned for mazel. It's just we're not constrained with the muzzle we're born with. We're not destined like often the other nations of the world. They're stuck with the muzzle they're born with. One of the benefits of the Jewish people is the 613 mitzvot can move around your naturally born muzzle, and we can change our muzzle, which means flow, which means zodiac, which does not mean luck. It's anything but luck, by the way. We don't believe in luck. Anyway, back to this. Oi, my dear friends. Life is a journey, everybody. It's a roller coaster. When you're on that down, don't give up. Don't give up. That up's going to come again. Just like hang on in there. Hang on. Just don't fall out the carriage when the roller coaster is doing crazy stuff. Just hold on, hold on, hold on. So that's the second Rashba's answer. So I had an answer, and then I'll tell you what happened to me. You'll think I'm mad, but you probably think I'm mad anyway. Actually, so if still asking a question, I mean, it depends what you mean muzzle. Everyone's got muzzle. It just means some people have bad muzzle, some people have good muzzle, right? So, and some people have certain muzzle, Cyril, because of reincarnation. In other words, because the previous lives you had X amount, and now in this life you need Y amount. I'm not going to go into that now, but it's too complicated. It's to do with watch my talk on YouTube. Go to reincarnation. That will start answering some of your questions of why we go through what we go through now. Okay, James has gone to make a coffee. Now, listen up. Here's the answer that I came up with. He's back from the coffee. Here we go. Says Rabbi Hill to his wife on Shabbos when I was discussing this. I've got an answer. And I'm going to tell you if you think you like my answer. And here was my answer. My answer was, this book was written 1,000 years ago. When 1,000 years ago, travel was literally life-threatening. If you wanted to go to Israel 1,000 years ago, it was a journey where you might not stay alive, and it was for months, and you may not see your family again, and how you took your family and your possessions. If you wanted to go to Brazil, and I'm in England, I want to go to Brazil, right? You know, you weren't going to the other side of the world. And if you went traveling, it was life-threatening, and therefore travel in those days was extremely life-threatening, as he writes. And one of the lines he writes, he says it can wear down the body and hasten the end of one's lifetime. He's not joking. Now, with all due respect, if you fly business class somewhere, you're not hastening the end of one's lifetime and wearing down your body. You're actually chilling. You're chilling out. You're super chilling out. One of my friends took me on his jet, you know, and it was a very luxurious experience. It was anything but wearing down. It was luxury. Nowadays, travel can be luxury, and therefore, can it be? And this is my question. That therefore the Chovos HaLevavos is not speaking about today's travel. Today's travel, it's even the 1950s, when he traveled to Scotland, it wasn't life-threatening, it wasn't hugely life-changing. He was from Manchester to Scotland, and it was super doable. And my wife then added, she always likes to add in the truth to finishes me off in every way. So she then said, not only that, even how much you needed was much easier in those days as well. That's the truth. In other words, it's a different world. 1,000 years ago, it's a different world. Now, here's where it got interesting. You see the bookshelf behind me. So we said the Dvar Torah, we spoke about it, then got an answer, closed the book, gave it a kiss, put the Chovos HaLevavos on the book shelf, And then it fell on my toe. And it really hurt, like really hurt. I thought it broke my toe. So this holy book, which I believe everything's for a reason, decided to beat me up. Chovos went and stood on my toe and said, so then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, can I even say this? What's he saying to me? Is he saying to me, because we don't believe anything happens randomly. We don't believe in randomness. We don't believe in coincidence. We believe things happen for a reason. We believe in measure for measures. So if this holy book is giving me a broken toe and telling me off, obviously I've done something that I need to introspect. And it made me think, am I even allowed to say this? So I actually went to one of my rabbis and checked out, can I say this approach? Is this truth? And he says, of course, absolutely true. Which then begs the question, why did the Chovos HaLevavos stub my toe? And maybe the answer is, and I'll just be honest with you, because I think you know me by now, I try and be a little bit honest with you guys. I don't think that he was giving me a stub toe because I was saying that times have changed 1,000 years. I think that's obvious. I think he's giving me a stub toe because I'm being a bit of a hypocrite, meaning I'm teaching you all about B'tochen, but I'm still not totally worry-free. I'm still staying up at night, sometimes wondering how I'm going to raise the money for my Tel Aviv project, where I'm going in counting down the days and we haven't received the money. And I think that's where the stub toe was coming from. I don't think the stub toe was in that answer. That's what the rabbi said to me. The answer was spot on. But I am definitely being weak and still being somewhat worried about how, see, I'm even hyperventilating talking about it. How are we going to pay? I've got to raise another £50,000. And I'm thinking, how is that going to happen? But I think now I'm learning this book and teaching this book. The Chovos HaLevavos is saying you're not allowed to worry. You've got to just know it's going to happen. You've got to trust Hashem. If Hashem can split the Red Sea, he can find Rabbi Hill another £50,000. And I think that's why I got a stub toe. There could be many other reasons because I've got a whole list of things I do wrong, but that's just one I am prepared to share with you. And I think that's what was happening. And I think that answer is beautiful, meaning that today, traveling, maybe the right litmus test today would be A, to do something unethical. You shouldn't do things unethical to make a livelihood. You shouldn't bring down your standards. You shouldn't break Shabbat to make a livelihood. You shouldn't eat non-kosher foods to make a livelihood. You shouldn't get involved in illegality to earn your livelihood. You shouldn't spiritually compromise what it is Hashem wants you to do to earn a livelihood. I think that is true. You shouldn't do something which is going to super compromise family life to earn a livelihood. You shouldn't compromise your relationship with Hashem to earn a livelihood. And it would mean that you couldn't do certain amount. I think it's a big problem. Let's say you go somewhere and there's no Jewish life where you're going. You know, I can't think, you tell me where there's a place where there's no Jewish life. I know. Baruch Hashem, there's kind of Jews
all
everywhere.
Over, okay? You're
Where?
spoiled in London.
Where?
There's no Jewish life all over.
Okay, fair enough. But even Vienna there is, right? But I don't know, let's call it Sussex, right? Sorry, Sussex, right? In Sussex in England, not a lot of, there's no many in there. Small German cities, right? There's many places in the world, you're right. I'm just kind of just in the spiritual cocoon of Hendon and Golders Green in Israel. But for those, there's a bigger, wider world out there. I think to go somewhere where there's no shul, there's no kosher food, there's no place of Torah learning. I think that maybe the Chovos HaLevavos would say he doesn't like that because it's really maybe to go for a week, to go for 2 weeks, to go for a month, but to go for a significant amount of time just because you need the money. How do you know? Like, in other words, you can't do sins to make money, number one, and you can't harm your spiritual level just to make money. Sorry. So if any of you has a certain question in that, I'm happy for you to speak to me about it, because obviously every individual question is different depending on who you are and where you're holding, what the question is, and I'm not making any halachic rendering any positions right now. I'm giving you broad strokes and macro concepts. And I believe what I'm saying is in today's generation, the Chovos HaLevavos, he's saying, don't do dangerous things. Don't do things. What was the line he says? Which wear down your body. That's why I don't go to the gym, right? Don't wear down your body, right? Don't run marathons. Don't do dangerous things. Don't do things which will hasten, God forbid, one's lifetime. If you were said, the way you make money is to start smoking, or maybe to be involved in passive smoking, where you're going to be in an office filled with smoke. Maybe. That's an interesting question, right? You're going to be in a scenario where it's bad for your health, unequivocally bad for your health. That could be dangerous. Then the Chovos HaLevavos said that's a lack of faith. That's a lack of faith. So all I'm saying is, I think that holds true in today. 1,000 years later, we've got to understand what is it that is now would hasten our lifetime, God forbid. What would wear down our body? What would I would add in now, God forbid, compromise our spirituality for livelihoods? And in that case, we shouldn't have a lack of faith. In other words, that we shouldn't do that. And I think, therefore, that's a nice conclusion. So in short, what we're saying is, says the Chovos HaLevavos, don't travel for livelihoods. What we're saying is, don't do dangerous things for livelihoods. Don't do unethical things for livelihoods. Don't do spiritually compromising things for livelihood. But in today's day and age, you definitely may travel abroad for a business opportunity, as long as it's a kosher business opportunity. And as long as it's a business opportunity that, please God, you give charity for. And it's within the genre of your spiritual work. And I definitely have to do some more inner work at learning how to sleep like a puppet and sleep like a baby. And just Hashem will bring that 50,000 pounds, just like Hashem split the Red Sea. And he brought the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soulmate for my daughter. Thank God. And for my other children, thank God. So why would Hashem all of a sudden stop looking after our family? He's not going to start doing that. So I've got to just work on my faith. So I think that's why I got a big stub on the toe from the Chovos HaLevavos. So thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Chovos HaLevavos, for beating me up. Sometimes you want a rabbi who beats you up. You don't just want a rabbi who says, oh, you're amazing the whole time, even though you all are absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. We're going to stop there. But what we'll do is on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, please with me for Rabbi Tat. Then next Sunday will be our last class on Chovos HaLevavos this side of the summer. And then next Wednesday week will be our last Wednesday night talk, talking about the Kabbalistic roots of Tisha B'Av. And then Mashiach will definitely have come. And I can go and chill out with Mashiach, with all of you. And if, God forbid, Mashiach's not here, and after my summer holidays, you're all still here, and I'm here, and we're all living and breathing, then please God, the plan will be to start up again on Rosh Chodesh Elul. In Elul, we'll be starting up our Sunday on Wednesday series again. I think it's good to give you a bit of space from the rabbi for a bit, because then it makes you feel, oh my gosh, when's he coming back? We need to start learning again. Because otherwise, like, it's too, they take it for granted, you know? You're like, and then he's like, the Yitzhahara is like, oh, not another Sunday, not another Wednesday. It's so annoying. You've got to come and sit. Now we have a bit of space. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, everybody. So I'm going to help fulfill the mitzvah of absence makes the heart grow fonder in a couple of weeks, but you've still got me at least for another 3 sessions. So thank you so, so much, everybody.